All right, I am your moderator today for TechCon. My name is Cheryl Goodman. I'm on the operating team for TechCon. I hope you're having a great conference. Come on, raise your hand. Let's get some energy going. Let's do the wave. High-five your neighbor. This is going to be a great panel, but as I was saying, there you go. See, look at this energy. This is literally the tightest panel I've ever had with the most panelists, but here's the good news. It is packed with goodness, okay? We've got the dream team for you here, so let's just jump in. Okay, so we're going to start on the end here, just really quick introductions of each one of them, and they're going to give you a one-liner about their company, and then we're going to jump in to the questions. And so first, let's start with Ranga Sempath. He's the SVP and the head of Center for Innovation for Siemens Health. Tell us a little bit about what Siemens Health does.
So Siemens Healthineers is a global leader in medtech, diagnostics, imaging, in vitro diagnostics. Anytime you go to a hospital and a sample is taken or you go to get an MRI done, probably a good chance that you're using a Siemens machine.
Yes, and there's some great stuff you're going to hear later about what else they're doing in AI. Can't wait to hear about that. Next up, we got Julian Willard. Dr. Julian Willard is a partner and head of strategy consulting at IBM, and he is really advising clients in pharma on business strategy in AI. So let's give it up for Julian. And Julian, tell us one liner about what that means.
Hello?
No, mine?
Wow, what was that? Is that a chat bot? Okay.
So everybody knows IBM, an old, very old company, but we have a consulting business within IBM, and the primary function of our consulting group is to work with clients on data and AI transformations. So I'm specifically working with biopharma clients in around strategic transformations.
Yeah. Impressive stuff, and very active locally as well. So thank you for all that you do, Julian. Okay, next up, Dr. Anil Kwane. He is the Scripps Health Corporate SVP, Chief Medical and Operations Officer. So we're really lucky to have you here with that busy schedule, and you are the Operations Officer for Ambulatory Care, right? So I think everyone knows what Scripps does. You heal people.
Yeah, you can tell I was a physician because I was a little late coming in here, so that was that gave it away. Yeah, no, again, it's a privilege to be here, and again, a phenomenal. We'll talk a little about how healthcare and technology are converging, and that's probably one of my greatest passions. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, awesome. All right, and then finally we have Jerome Bonhomme. He is the CTO of American Specialty. Tell us a little bit about what American Specialty does.
Yeah, so I'm from the only company that probably nobody knows about, but you're probably using our products because we do health and clinical and fitness products for the largest health plans in the US. So we are the technology innovation arm for those insurers. We help people get better without surgery, without prescription drugs, through, you guess what, technology. So yeah, then I'll talk a little bit about how we do that.
Yes, and a former Sony executive as well, like myself. So and they're all San Diegans. So this is the level of talent that we have, global talent driving global initiatives right here on this stage.
Good
you too
IP
can come
portfolio.
up and talk to them.
I'm currently
after.
working with many startup companies.
All right, so let's get. Is this room possessed? I mean,
It may be the next room.
Then we're going to have to get really loud is what's going to have to happen. All right, so this is healthcare and AI, phenomenal discussion. As we were doing our pre-talk, Dr. Anil said something that was so insightful and powerful. And, do you recall what we were saying?
I do, and it's always great to be insightful because at home I don't get those comments, so I appreciate that. I'd like to knock a little closer.
There you go. Looks like that.
Is that good? Can you hear me better? So let's talk a little bit about the healthcare and in California. Right, California is emblematic of the rest of the country. California, if you look at healthcare spend has been going up over the last 20 years, and of course even before that. And of course, across California, legislation just occurred, and this is very recent, where the Governor Newsom said enough. And they want to kind of look at capping healthcare spend. And this is kind of unique. This is very unique to California. Not only do they want to cap healthcare spend, they want to find organizations that don't hit that spend target. And that spend target's about 3 to 3.5%. And if you think about healthcare costs goes up at least 5% or more in California. So what you have going on right now, literally between now and June, is a lot in the legislature and a lot of things happening across California in that the healthcare spend exceeds the spend target. And if people don't hit it, they're going to have a fine. What does that do? That's going to spawn a lot of need for technology. This may be the time that tech and AI and how we use our data better and predictive models can help us reduce that spend, because now we need to do it. And by the way, you can only do it without laying off people.
And,
right?
and
So it's all about technology. So that's a good time for you all in healthcare.
and related to, that's the code word for AI is efficiency, right? So when you think of AI, the promise is efficiency. You're saying there's a cap that's going to happen, and so you're going to have to dig deep. You're going to have to deploy AI in some way, right? No pressure there.
And you always need that. You always need a catalyst. You need a burning platform. And until now, there hasn't been as much of a burning platform because you can go as business as usual. Now you have a burning platform. How do you get your costs down? Well, there's not many ways you can do it. You know, it's labor, which you have to protect, and you want your people. You can't get supply costs down any faster. So it is sort of the entrance of technology.
Yeah, no, I think that's very insightful. So I think everyone can hear us now. So, all right, so let's switch over to, now that we've level set that, obviously we know AI is about efficiency, but the pressure is on. I want to talk to Julian about, you've published a lot of clinical trials, a lot of information. You advise clients on outcomes. You're working with them right now to get them to market in these AI solutions. What are your findings and observations? By the way, I mentioned you are in the pharma section of
Mars.
Yeah.
Yes. What I want to emphasize that a lot of clients tend to focus on. All right. So I said everybody. Okay. So a lot of clients currently are focused on the sexiest opportunities. You know, let's develop drugs with artificial intelligence. However, the value is actually in achieving productivity and efficiency in our operations, right? And then reinvest in that cash back into the top line revenue growth opportunities. So in the clinical trial space, we know that 80% of the entire drug development cost sits within clinical development. And that process is incredibly inefficient. So there are four things that my clients talk about. One is, how do we make clinical trials accessible? And now we have digital health technologies, and talk about decentralized clinical trials. So how do we integrate, instead of asking a patient to come in for a visit, how can we register that information using Internet of Things devices and then do analytics on top of that? The second thing is the patient pool expansion. We recruited the patients, but then we need to keep recruiting those patients. How can we do that? We can do that using sentiment data analysis. We can actually, as you know, the reach outs that we probably all get on LinkedIn. Like, for example, today I received a message that says, we think that you may need custom boxes. It's absolutely irrelevant. But using artificial intelligence, we can reach out to patients that are in specific area, in specific therapeutic group of interest, with a personalized outreach. And finally, internal operations efficiencies, such as clinical trial site management. Today, you would be surprised, a lot of our clients, they use Excel spreadsheets and manual record keeping for clinical trial site management. All of this process can be automated and analytics can be deployed with, and this is available today. This is not rocket science.
Yes, and that's a great jumping off point. I don't need to stand because I'm loud. So, faxes, right? So we were talking just how so much of medical information is communicated by faxes. So anyone in this lineup, jump on and talk about what is that?
Yeah, so I will stand even though I'm loud. So fundamentally, if you sort of look at the data that's coming at us, right? I mean, and this is true across not just in health, but no matter where you live. The amount of data that's coming at you is so much. Most of the time, we are almost like deer in a headlight situation. All this is coming at us. We don't know how to react to it, how to respond to it. But if I step back to what sort of our core mission, right, from a health side and what we see globally as a global tech company, kinds of trends, like first even look at demographics, right? Most of us, thankfully, are living, right? Which means more of us are going to be needing more medical services per longer time, right? So there's a lot more of us. But as we're aging, there are certain things that unfortunately don't change. And the kinds of, chronic diseases and all that, which require you to interface with your health system, is increasing. So a lot of data is, and we also have become very smarter, wearing smart watches and smart tools and all these things, which means from personal medicine all the way to personal information gathering, all the way to hospital-based. Amount of data that's coming in is so large and so different. Think of a doctor who was trained 30 years ago, at the same time I was trained as an engineer. They are dealing with solid information without any additional training. They know some basic facts, right? They've been trained in the anatomy, physiology, and management of patient, but not in the amount of data that's coming in. How can we make AI take all this data, integrate them in a way, and present it in a manner that is interpretable the way they were trained? So we can make the relationship between information and turn that into knowledge and turn that into action. I think that's really where AI, I think, is going to bring us all together. And the same thing we see, when Anil talked about workforce efficiency. I mean, it's the same fundamental problem, right? It's about all these people who we need them to do more and more, but there are less and less people who are coming into the workforce. And this is across the board. And I've seen this not just in healthcare, but if I focus just on healthcare, train people who are going to enter the workforce already at a clip, which means by the time 2030 comes, there aren't going to be enough medtechs who are going to be doing your labs. There aren't even enough doctors who are going to be able to interpret all the data. So where all this sort of comes is data is king, but only in so much as you can make sense of it. That's, I think, where AI is working.
Yeah, and then we're at the hype cycle. Gartner does their annual report, the trial of disillusionment. So everyone was super excited about AI, a lot of patronizing of all these services and software and solutions. And now we're in this downward trial, like where is the real value, right? And so when you think about deploying your AI-led infrastructure solutions, what does that look like? What are your key findings? And maybe Jerome.
Yeah. So I'm going to take kind of maybe a controversial or contrarian point of view. We hear a lot, and we're really excited about AI solving really tough problems, right? How can AI replace a doctor? Dr. Neil?
Not this guy. No way.
How can that AI drive my car for me, or do really fantastic, sophisticated stuff? I think this is going to come for sure. There are so many trivial and mundane tasks in the operations of healthcare that I want to start there. And I think Dr. Neil was talking about the optimization of operations, and you touched on the fact that the main way of data integration that doctors have with their health plans or even between two floors, where they send fax to each other. It's really rich data, really important information about you that becomes unusable.
Fax for folks, people want to know faxes are.
Oh, all right. So fax, you have a machine, you have a piece of paper. So if you've never seen a fax, welcome to the 21st century healthcare. So the good thing is it's secure, and everybody knows how to use it. So can we put an AI, and maybe it's just a small part of AI that we're natural language processing and image recognition, to actually reduce the cognitive burden on doctors so they don't have to try to make sense out of a 50-page or 100-page PDF document or bundle of paper. Those type of problems exist throughout the system, and that's, I think, what adds a lot of cost and what adds a lot of pain. And I think doctors don't like to do this type of stuff. They are really highly functional people, try to do super complicated stuff. We want to let them do that. So what I'm saying is, try to look at the parts of our value chain where we can deploy really quickly some things that might be less sexy, but really enable us to recapture the value of the people who are really smart.
That makes sense. And there's two jumping off points. One. So as we were preparing for this panel, I shared with my fellow panelists new programs for MDs to have dual degrees in data science, right? So where there's this merging of, you're not going to get rid of your core knowledge. You're going to need to take on board more training. I write about this in my book, which comes out on May 30th, How to Win Friends and Influence Robots. And we talk about education. That's a real name, by the way. So when we talk about education and reskilling, but when we first started out, Anil, we talked about efficiency. Efficiency being code word in many people's minds is, does that mean I'm going to get laid off? Does that mean I'm going to be replaced? So when we look at efficiency, what do you think is like the low-hanging fruit to really bring an efficient AI model on board for an organization the size of Scripps?
Yep, so I'll stand up again. So, it's great because I think the thing about healthcare is personal. I think about it, when I practice, I don't practice as much anymore, but when I practice, I remember people coming into the exam room and the things they will tell me about their family, about their lives, about their fears. They wouldn't tell their best friends, they won't tell their family member even, but they'll tell a doctor, right? Because there's a protected, hyper-personal environment. And back when I practiced 20 years ago, there weren't a lot of communications other than come into the office or have a phone call with a nurse back then, and the nurse would transcribe and hand it to you. That was in our lifetime. That was like within 20 years. Now we look at our technology, where we are today, is we have this level of communication. Phones still exist, right? But we're seeing people email their doctors, and we look at iCounty. About every 3 seconds, we get a message, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because emails work, right? We've portals, and we get a message from patients. And oftentimes, you look at these messages, and the messages, it was sort of, I asked folks, the clinicians, what do you think? And the doctors, they're fed up. Why? Because their messages are coming in at such a fast click. And a lot of the time, the messages are, hey, I want to tell you, I just got a new dog. Or, I want to tell you, I really liked my last visit because of this, and I told my wife about this, right? And the messages are conversational. And that was creating a level of burnout. And so what's the response when you're tired and you've had a full day? The message was, okay, thanks.
True.
Right? Or receipt, copy that. And you can just imagine, they write this paragraph, not joking, dog. Apparently there's a whole bunch of cat videos on YouTube, but in healthcare, it's messages about your dogs. I don't know why. I have a dog.
Allergies.
That was sort of the thing. And the messages going back to the patient was like, I don't care about you. I don't really care, right? I don't care about your dog. That's how they received it. It was like receiving a message back from anyone have teenagers? You ever text or email your teenager, I love you, have a great day, I love you, you're the best part of my life, and they respond back, thanks. That's it. Thumbs up, emoji, maybe. I need food, right? That was our relationship with our patients. So we've now implemented using a large language model, using AI, generated responses back. Now, the interesting thing in healthcare, the generated response is an email. It has to go to the clinician, the physician, the nurse practitioner, PA. They have to review it before they release it. And that is released back to the patient. And the messages are, guess what, so much nicer. Now, by the way, the patients know they're AI generated, and they don't care because it's still reviewed by the clinician. It costs us about 6 cents a message. And you say, well, that seems like a lot. It's cheaper than having a clinician type this, cheaper than having a nurse. And so when you look at it, what are we doing? To your question earlier, we're upskilling, going back to letting people do what's at top of license, right? People don't want to go back and write a paragraph on things that they should be doing, nor do you want to have a nurse do that, who's also at top license. And so those are some of the things we're doing, is getting people back to what they're passionate about. So when you go in the exam room, right, you're not seeing somebody who's a data aggregator talking to you, who's looking at the computer. You're having somebody who can actually go back and concentrate back on what the magic is in the exam.
Yeah. So this is like this term I heard earlier today was scaling health. So it's really the whole person. It's not just whatever the prescription is, but I hear you, and they would rather have the intent of your goodwill. You don't have the time for that, but your intent has gone through, and that's actually a good healthcare practice. Is effectively what you're saying, Mike?
Yeah, and that's where technology needs to augment what's in the the stream of healthcare. I think we were talking about this earlier. You don't want point solutions that just sort of point solutions just kind of up here, up there, and you add one more thing in the day. It has to kind of augment that flow of how healthcare is provided. Yeah. And if you can do that, there are so many problems in healthcare to solve. You just have to figure out where the pain points are and build them into that workflow. And then you'll see rapid adoption.
Then shifting gears, we're going to talk a little bit about the pressures as executive leaders in systems, deploying an AI system. How are you dealing with the pressures, stakeholders to deploy faster, better, privately, safely, securely, and all of the above?
Yeah, so, this comes up all the time, and there's so much hype around. AI is not new, but generative AI is exploded, like you just heard in the keynote this morning. The number of people who have no idea of any of these things that utter the word Gen AI is gone, right? So, same thing happens in a sort of workplace like ours. We are a 70,000 person company, and the immediate thing is, how can I use AI for building my, Gen AI for my software development, all this, and then the company with them says, wait, you're going to do all this in what domain? How are you going to do all this? And part of the challenge that we are sort of facing as a company, there is this whole stream of things that you take into account, is this privacy, security you want to protect. You want to make sure your own workforce is engaged. They are able to use the tools. So creating that sort of environment, like sandbox kind of environment, where you're still dealing with these kind of models, right? But within a protected environment, allowing all of these to sort of come together. We still want, we don't want our coders to be writing codes and everybody else in the world is using automated thing, because efficiency, the 10x and the 20x improvement in getting good quality code that can come out of it means you can push your product out faster, right? There is a desire to get all of that done, but not in a way that we can't validate them, we can't, stand behind. So it's going to take a lot of effort. So it's not a magic bullet in the sense of just because it's out there, meaning it's going to suddenly transform. The amount of work that's going to go, and I suspect many of you in the room here are dealing with the same kind of issues, right? I mean, you're dealing with how do I translate what is happening in the sort of public domain into what's happening in media.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great response. There was that phrase earlier, forget who said it, but it's absolutely hilarious. It's this concept that, when ChatGPT launched in the consumer public in November of 2022, and you spent all this time with it, once you had wrapped it and downloaded and subscribed and gave all your money away, you had this day after Christmas effect or day after birthday effect. You're like, great, I spent all this money, there's wrapping all over the floor. I've not saved any time, right? But I spent a heck of a lot of money. Anyone want to comment on, validating that experience and what that means to you and your roles?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is the reason for that, day after Christmas syndrome is it's not easy. And it's not easy for a couple of things. It's not easy because data is messy. It's not easy because you have competing interests between regulators who want you to deliver really personal care to the people you treat, and you have consumers who are also expecting that high-touch, empathetic care, and regulators who are also saying, hey, keep things private, and make sure it's secure. And by the way, the NIST framework for AI, when it was released? Anybody is paying attention to information security? That's kind of the gold standard for information security. It was released less than a month ago. Which means before there are probably things that we could help govern where we're going, but really no accepted standard by the regulatory bodies. So it's all kind of emerging, and with that, there is that mystification that it works like human. You talk to it and it responds smart things, and it figures things that you didn't know before. Yes, all that is true, and it comes with a lot of work before. So one of the things that I've observed, at least in my role, and I've also seen a little bit of literature on that. Maybe Julian, you are one of the others, I don't know, but at this stage of Gen AI, as tech leaders, we should probably spend 70% of our time educating and working on change management. 20% of that time working on data, okay, making sure it's clean, making sure we understand, making sure we can actually rely on it, and the 10% left, okay, let's build those bubbles, let's make it work. So it's a little different from kind of narrative that we kind of hear about frequently, right? Just educate and demystify a lot.
Last word. No, I think that's great. So just administrative note, we have about 7 minutes left. I want a key insight from each panelist about what's their number one bit of advice for you and how you can take their lived experience and maybe apply that to your life. But then I just want to share one thing, just one observation. In the early days of I was at mp3.com, if anyone remembers that company, and you remember all of the lawsuits and the copyright, and mp3 players were considered illegal devices. We're the same thing. Go back 20 years, we're in the same thing, but now accelerated by 10. So can we really see the true value of AI as an exponential utility, like for what it's doing, and then set aside all the things that will get solved, hallucinations and policy and legislation and all of those things. So with that context, with the 20-year from now view, what's the number one thing that you would like to start, share with the audience? And Joanne, I see that you had just raised your hand, so maybe we start with you and then you get your other comment.
I wanted to say 3 things. I've lived through, over 20 transformations in the past year with different clients. Number one, don't focus on the use cases, focus on transforming a workflow end to end. 2, do not underestimate the integration value and integration effort for artificial intelligence technology. It takes a lot of time. And 3, focus on the value. Focus on productivity efforts first and foremost, because they can bring the biggest bang for the buck immediately that you can reinvest to grow your opportunity, top line revenue opportunities. And what I hope for in the next 10 years, since I'm very passionate about research and development and drug design, I hope that we're going to get an AI-assisted drug developed and gone through the clinical trial process effectively in the next 10 years.
Excellent. Rado.
So if I had to say 20 years or even less than that, what I hope is that all this hype sort of settles down into more practical, pragmatic things. And there could be different things for different industry. In my industry, one of the challenges I started off with saying about the workforce thing, right? And we also know at the same time there's a lot of changes happening sort of in the robotics side of it. And I want to bring this point because when Anil talks about doctors and nurses, the people behind the scene, the medtech, the lab, where you go, all these things, these are almost thankless jobs, right? And no, we're not recruiting people their passion. If we tell them, hey, this is not your grandfather's medtech job, but this is now supercharged with all the tools, we can actually attract really bright people into that. There's a need for all these labs to be running for us to get the quality information that the doctors can deal with. How do we incentivize our own employees? That is where I think the biggest bang for the buck of AI is in motivating.
Phenomenal insights. Dr.
I would say I love Simon's next. Start with why. I always loved his book. But think for a moment. Don't do show of hands. But if I gave you $5 million to take 5 years off of your life, your loved one's life, or a spouse's life, and it was $5 million, would you take that deal? The answer is no, right? And think about it. Would it be 10 million? Probably still no. And think about what's the most important thing that we hold dear to us is 2 things: health and longevity. Right? We want to live to see our kids grow up, our family evolve. We want to go through the stages of life. Health and longevity. And I separate longevity because that is now the new, my view is a new push in healthcare. You talk about health, so you want to live long and live healthy. Everything you're doing, if you're here for healthcare, realize the why. The why is not to build a new tool. It's not to build a new large language model. It's not to be on the Gartner hype cycle. It actually is because what you're doing is you're putting back moments in people's lives. You want, and I say this with an older child who has chronic illness and chronic issues. And our thing that keeps up us at night is how can we extend his life? How can we make sure he's healthy? How can he have a normal life? So when you go back to start with the why, understand what you're doing here, And I can talk all about LLMs, I can talk about AI, I can talk about how AI is going to unlock all our data, and about our laboratory and all and the research we do. But at the end of the day, if you go back to the internal, what you're doing here, it's actually to extend life and make sure it's a great quality of life for people that you're trying to touch. So I love that.
Yeah, well, hard to follow. 20 years, maybe sooner than that. I think this AI is like electricity is today, right? So your iPhone powered by electricity, yeah. What I have in mind is what do we spend our time on today? Spend our time on educating ourselves across pretty large swath of domains, because this is something that will always, I think, remain ours, right? Creating the why and using those tools, those communities to do it faster, better. And the only other piece of wisdom is that I would leave you with is start now and start small. Thank you.
All right, I think we are at a time. I think these were phenomenal insights. I'm sure that you'll want to talk to the panel after. We're going to head out this door and over to the hallway if you have questions. But thank you for your tolerance of the tech issues at TechCon. And we appreciate your time and attention. Take care.